Thank you, Chair. Assemblyman Baker.
Yeah, just wanted to really briefly come in on this subject. Firstly, to say that we will be discussing bus safety at great length. So I think it's really important that we make sure that we don't skirt the surface of something that's really, really important. But we've had a long discussion there and lots of warm words, but I think a little bit not so much specific, and a lot of focus on lifestyle factors, wearables, all of which, as you've said, come with a lot of IR monitoring issues. Monitoring is a very, very controversial subject, understandably, and has been for a long time. This is not new. It's been around for decades, the concerns about that. So what I just want to sort of be specific about is, in terms of, Ben, when you were saying, you seem to give the impression that what the first thing that you did was talk about lifestyle factors and whether people were, lots of chat about whether they're working, watching telly too late or stuff like that. And then you talked about rostering. Can we be clear about whether rostering and safe rostering, including people moving their shifts, is the first thing you look at, rather than talking to people about whether they're going to bed late? Because, we're talking about, where do you get the most bang for your buck? The most bang for your buck is sorting out the systems, isn't it? Let's face it.
So a lot of this, it isn't done as one step or the other. So a lot of what we're doing with the fatigue, with the rostering and allocation, is doing continually, even before we even receive a Guardian activation or a notice that a driver's called in fatigue. So that's something that continually monitors. I track that through a dashboard, conversations and meetings with the allocations team, because I can see what people have booked in. So that's us trying to be proactive and understanding.
What do you do in order to ensure you've got safe rostering? What are your standards about safe rostering? Because we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel here. No, because you're talking about giving this to the buses. Well, the railway's been doing this for decades. So what have you done about safe rostering before you start having that conversation? And that has to go along with just culture, rather than conversations about whether people are going to bed late.
Yeah, so this consists of the hours that they drive, the hours that they come into work, the continuous number of days they're allowed to work. Yes. It's all been reduced. It's all now in line. So all of that stuff has been put in and implemented 4 or 5 years ago when we started this process off. Yeah. It's now continual just revisit of this. So when we're looking at stuff, when we see spikes, how we do it, that's how we're now looking to try and be more proactive and front foot. And that's something that we do continually using our fatigue steering action group that we use as an opportunity to have and revisit and recheck what we're doing.
That's helpful. That's what I suspected, and that's what I needed to hear, because I think I was getting lost a little bit in, because you were describing what you're doing now in terms of
I probably tried to get 100 things out really quickly rather than do it in a sequential way. But it all starts with that. It started with the training also was a key part of that, and making sure it's bespoke training, using that external source supplier that came from aviation, the pharmaceutical background, so we weren't just relying on what rail may have done in the past as well.
Yeah. And can I then ask just a really specific question around your just culture, which is, of course, no blame is not quite the same thing, but it's about, appropriate consequences if people have actually done things deliberately wrong or not so deliberately wrong, and, and making sure people can speak about it. Absolutely crucial, of course, to ensure less that you're telling people to live their lives in a certain way, more that they feel able to share that there might have been an impact on something they've done that they didn't realise were going to. How do you measure that? How do you measure the impact of that? Of the implementation of a more positive culture around speaking out when you think you might be too tired to drive?
I think we see that from the number of people that are now willing to contact and report self-fatigue. Previously that may have been something that's never been done, or people were frightened to do it. We certainly don't have that now. We have, people will ring in self-fatigue and say the reasons why, and it's it. That there's no disciplinary, there's nothing ever associated to this kind of area that we're talking about here. That is purely about trying to help the people understand, and support.
Yeah, that's helpful. So you collect data on obviously anonymised self-reporting of that, and does that include mid-shift, not just before shift? That means people going, actually halfway through, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to. So you collect data on all of that to ensure it's working.
We had a recent occurrence, similar, just only a few weeks back, where somebody had set the Guardian off. By the time they rung up, they thought they were okay, but then went and reported fatigue since. And then that's about just trying to understand and talking about what's going on in the world and help support to